Velkommen tilbage til en ny video. I dag så skal jeg se PP Blakes fucking 4 timers lang video. Den her video kommer ikke til at være så lang. Jeg tager det i segmenter. I dag er det sessions and time. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get it started. Woo.
But I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out. What is going on? Welcome to lesson number 6 in the free course series. For this lesson, we are going to be going over time. Time is so freaking important.
Tiden er vigtig, gutter. Tiden er vigtig. Den her video, det her segment her er kun 20 minutter lang. Videoen kommer nok til at være dobbelt længde, da jeg skriver ned i mine 2 journals. Det er ikke journals, det er notebooks. Journal, det er noget jeg gør her på YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen. Så. Nummer 6. Oh my god. Vi skal allerede i gang i væskelæder. Bare for lige at skrive titlen. Det er crazy. Jeg ved det godt. Og der bliver stadigvæk ikke noget redigering. Fordi at der er jeg sgu for doven. Jeg tror godt jeg kunne finde på at lave noget Instagram. Noget TikTok med med trading også. Bare for at få mit navn lidt derud. Så når jeg engang tjener skejsen, så kan jeg måske hjælpe andre eller inspirere andre til at starte. Det vil da ikke være helt skidt. Så. Men lad os komme i gang.
I'm going to be going over every single session, its tendencies, when to be trading, when not to be trading, and then I'm also going to dive into some news so you guys know, how to check news on your own, how to see when there's going to be big injections of volatility and
det er meget vigtigt det her, når jeg ved ikke om han nævner senere. Hvis han nævner nogle dage, hvor man ikke skal trade, så skal du stadigvæk kigge på markedet. Du skal ikke tage en trade, eller du skal kigge med intentioner om ikke at finde en trade, men hvis der dukker en trade op, hvor du simpelthen føler, at du vil være en idiot for ikke at tage det, så kan du godt tage det, fordi det har han forklaret i en anden video. Ja, så du kan godt tage en trade på de dage, hvor han siger, at man ikke skal tage en trade, hvis du føler, at du er idiot, hvis du ikke gør det. Kan du følge mig? Så du stadigvæk du skal kigge på charten hver dag, uanset hvad. Men de dage, hvor du ikke skal trade, der skal du bare lede efter ikke at finde en trade. Men hvis du så finder en, så bliver du nødt til at tage den. Ja.
How to stay away from that, and also how to take advantage of that. So let's get into time. Let's do it. So starting off here, we have 5 different sessions, okay? And everything I say here, guys, is going to be in Eastern Standard Time in UTC-5 New York time, okay? Just remember.
Til hvis der er andre, der siger med. Tror jeg ikke, der er, men hvis der er. Det er bare sådan, jeg bedst kan lide det. Men jeg har mit trading view i Eastern Time, altså New York Time. Fordi at så giver det bare meget mere mening, når du kigger på influencers og sådan noget der, hvor de har deres time, fordi så nogle gange så ser du også nogle trade London session. Og så i stedet for at skulle minus og plus og alt muligt med tid og sådan noget, så er det bare meget nemmere bare at du ved, hvornår det er. Fordi så længe der du ved, hvornår det er, at den session du trader i, som er New York AM, der har han så skrevet noget forkert. New York AM, det er altså det er 9:30 Hvorfor? Vent, hvad? Er det egentlig 8:30? Men det er bare... Okay, vent, det kan være, at jeg lærer noget nyt source her.
For that. Everything is in Eastern Standard Time. So we have Asia session, London session, New York AM session, New York lunch hour, and New York PM session. The days are divided into these 5 sessions and these 5 sessions, right? These 5 kill zones, these 5 times, okay? Asia session is from 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. Lunch session is from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. New York AM session is from 8:30 a.m. to 11. New York lunch hour is from 11 to 1, and New York PM is from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Okay, knowing this, guys, I want you to understand first off that New York AM session is always going to have the best volatility in terms of price action, in terms of movement. We are.
Jeg ved allerede sådan basic ting. Jeg skriver altså først kun ned, når det er, at der kommer noget, jeg ikke allerede har skrevet ned, eller jeg ikke allerede sådan tænker på hver dag. Altså sådan noget der er common knowledge. Hvis det er det første gang, du ser det her, så skriv alt fucking ned. Alles. Alt sammen. Alt det der er på det billede her. Du burde pause skærmen. Skriv alt sammen ned. Bare for at gøre det. Du får ikke brug for det til en skid. Man kan bare gøre det. Det var det, jeg gjorde. Min første bog, den er så fucking detailed, at det er faktisk lidt ulækkert.
He's going to typically, not always, sorry, I'll say typically, New York AM session is going to have the best price action, which is why I strictly only trade New York AM session. Sometimes lunch hour if the price action is really bad. In AM session, we'll get into that in a second. Yeah, what I want you guys to know is that typically the price action tends to be the best during New York AM session because why? Well, we are trading the Nasdaq, we're trading NQ futures, we're the S&P 500, trading the 500 stocks of the US, best of the world, right? So we're trading that, and because of that, we're not trading, USD JPY, and we're not trading during Asia session, right? We're trading during New York time, New York AM session, and that's when the most amount of people are going to be entering into the markets, and that's when the volatility is going to be the best, right? So that being said, Asia session is from 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. Not going to be the best in terms of volatility, in terms of price action. You're going to see a lot of candles that are really choppy, really slow. The candles print very slowly, and it's just not the best in terms of volatility. I wouldn't recommend trading it. London session, a little bit better than Asia, not better than New York though. I would say it's a little bit in between. Where London session can move, it could be good, price action could be good, but typically it's not the best, right? From 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. New York AM session from 8:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern, this is when price action is the best. 8:30 a.m. is when a lot of news is injected into the markets. That's what I want you guys to know. There's a lot of news injected at 8:30 a.m. Typically CPI, PPI, and we'll get into news later on in this video. And then the opening bell for New York AM session, when I personally trade, is from 9:30 a.m. So I trade from a very short time, from 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern. Sometimes maybe I'll touch a little bit into lunch hour if the price action is bad in AM session, but yeah, typically it's just 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern. But it's good to note that 8:30.
Det sidste stykke tid, der har lunch virkelig hverdags. Som virkelig hverdags. Som er mere Asia end Asia. Som virkelig hverdags. Utrolig lort. Men den her video så er også næsten 5 måneder gammel, så...
p.m. is when a lot of news is injected into the market, and that's typically when price action could start looking good, right? And then we have lunch hour, which is from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern, and then PM session is from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern. Lunch hour is typically again not that great. PM session also can be good, but not that great. Not all the time great. Now, how do you know that AM session is going to be bad, or how do you know that lunch hour is going to be bad, or all these things? How do you know when to trade, Blake? Like, how do you know that you sometimes trade during lunch hour? Good question, right? So you can tell whether a session is typically going to be bad or it's going to be good based on the previous sessions that we had, right? So let's say, for example, Asia session and London session move phenomenally. We have insane delivery on London and Asia session. We move 400 points. We take out all the draws on liquidity, right? We have an insane run during London and Asia session. Boom. What can you expect for New York AM session? You can expect it to be worse price action. You can.
Just going on. meget volatility. Jeg kan ikke stave til det. Hvis Asia og London session. Ja, det hvis jeg bare ved, hvad det betyder, så kan jeg rette det senere. Ja.
Expected to chop because all the volatility and all the liquidity was taken during London session. And what happens after that? We usually chop. And then what's going to happen? Probably the rest of the day is going to be bad. Probably lunch hour is going to be bad. Probably PM session be bad. But let's say, AM session was really bad. Sometimes we can have good lunch hour. So if
sometimes
AM session is like just really, really choppy and really shitty, there's typically times where if we generate like a lot of liquidity during, that 8:30 a.m. to 11 o'clock, 11 o'clock can sometimes start running. Maybe I'll touch a little bit into lunch hour if the price action is, bad in AM session. But yeah, typically it's just 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern. But it's good to note that 8:30 a.m. is when a lot of news is injected into the market, and that's typically when price action could start looking good, right? And then yeah, we have lunch hour, which is from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern, and then PM session is from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern. Lunch hour is typically again not that great. PM session also can be good, but not that great, not all the time great. Now, how do you know that AM session is going to be bad, or how do you know that lunch hour is going to be bad, or all these things? How do you know when to trade, Blake? Like, how do you know that you sometimes trade during lunch hour? Good question, right? So you can tell whether a session is typically going to be bad or it's going to be good based on the previous sessions that we had, right? So let's say, for example, Asia session and London session move phenomenally. We have insane delivery on London and Asia session. We move 400 points. We take out all the draws on liquidity, right? We have an insane run during London and Asia session. Boom. What can you expect for New York AM session? You can expect it to be worse price action. You can expect it to chop because all the volatility and all the liquidity was taken during London session. And what happens after that? We usually chop. And then what's going to happen? Probably the rest of the day is going to be bad. Probably lunch hour is going to be bad. Probably PM session be bad. But let's say, AM session was really bad. Sometimes we can have good lunch hour. So if AM session is like just really, really choppy and really shitty, there's typically times where if we generate like a lot of liquidity during, that 8:30 a.m. to 11 o'clock, 11 o'clock can sometimes start running out that liquidity. So let's say, 9:30 to 11 or 8:30 to 11 looks like this. 11 o'clock can start cleaning up and, sometimes even take out this price action, and lunch hour can actually be clean, right? But it's not all the time, and it's not highest probability, which is why I always recommend just sticking with one session. And that's like the main thing I want to get at in this video is to stick with one session, okay? If you can't trade New York AM session because you're working, because you have a job, maybe you have to go to school, maybe you're still in high school, right? What I would recommend
for os danskere, der er det her virkelig svært, fordi London session, det er klokken 11, tror jeg, hvis jeg husker rigtigt. Det er klokken, det er på det tidspunkt i Danmark. Det her det er klokken 15:30. Hvis du har et arbejde, så det var jeg i hvert fald. Jeg var først hjemme klokken 16:30, 16-agtigt. Så der vil jeg miss out på en masse gode trades. Og her, og det er de eneste 2 gode sessions, der er. Så i Danmark, der har du kun én ting at gøre. Du har kun én mulighed, og det er det, jeg har gjort. Og snart jeg havde lært lidt om det, så gik jeg all in. Droppede ud af min uddannelse. Slog op med min kæreste. Gjorde alt. Fordi jeg ved, at det her, det er det, jeg vil. Og nu I'm going to win, motherfucker.
Is, well, first, there's always a solution, right? I started trading, my senior year of high school going into college, so I didn't really trade in high school, but I started trading in college, and I would just, center my classes around New York AM session, so I would have classes. I had one class one time. Did I have a class before New York AM session? I can't remember. I think I had one biology class before. Anyways, but I would usually just stack my classes around New York AM session, so anytime after 11, so I'd make sure I do my college classes like that if you're still in college, or if you have a job, try to, do that, but if you can't do that and you're working full time, what I would recommend.
Hvis du er i skole, start day trade. Hvis du er i skole, start day trade. Det er virkelig et dårligt tidspunkt faktisk. Never mind, fordi det er der du får fri. Never mind. Start der, men lær learn the whole aspect of trading i det år, eller sådan, hvor meget du har tilbage. Brug det på at lære om trading. Ikke trade, men bare lære om trading. Gå ind FX replay og sådan noget der. Ikke bruge sådan mange penge på trading. Bare brug de der $35 om måneden, det koster for at have FX replay pro. Og hvad skal du ellers bruge? Man kunne også godt betale de der $20 om måneden for i hvert fald have exponential inde på TradingView. Ja. Men jeg vil ikke recommend at begynde at sætte penge i funded accounts.
Is trading either London session or sometimes even PM session can be good. But sticking to one session is the main thing I want to get out of this video. Again, I'm sticking completely to New York AM session and sometimes a little bit of lunch hour, but I backtest this like chronically, and this is all I backtest. All the data I get, all the statistics I get is based off of New York AM session and based off of, a little bit of lunch hour. So that's the only sessions I'm going to be trading, right? I have no data on London session and Asia session, so I'm not going to be really skilled when it comes to that, and I'm probably going to have a much lower win rate when it comes to trading Asia session and when it comes to trading London session. So am I going to trade those sessions? Stick to whatever you feel comfortable with based on whatever you've back tested, okay? And again, if you can only trade during PM session, trade PM session, but back test the fuck out of it, understand all of its nuances, understand all of its tendencies, and then stick with that. And then maybe you can always implement some New York AM session in your back testing, I would say, for sure, just so when you are able to, get time off from that job and you have some days off, or you maybe change your classes and then you can trade, this is definitely by far the best session. So it would always be ideal to be trading during this session. I remember when I was working my job, I had New York AM session. Sometimes I would have shifts during AM session, and I would literally just like set myself alerts. So I would like go on the chart, literally like, let's say I want to see this level get hit to take shorts. I would just set an alert here, boom, and then I would feel my phone buzz in my pocket. I'll be like, all right, bet, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, wait for my setup to present itself, take like a 10-15 minute freaking bathroom break, have my boss be knocking on the bathroom like, yo, are you good? And then take my trade, and then lose money probably, because yeah.
Det er så true, det der. Det er så true. Jeg tømmer. Så snart det var omkring, det er også et ekstra dårligt tid, for det er der, hvor vi skal begynde at rydde op og sådan noget der. Men så snart det var, at markedet åbnede og sådan noget der, ikke? Hvis jeg ikke var alene, eller fordi så der er det jo meget sådan tomandsarbejde, nogle af tingene. Og det var noget bullshit. Men ellers så, for jeg havde en alarm på min mobil, så når den ringede, så vidste jeg godt, okay. Og så snart det ramte, men når jeg så bare gik for mig selv, så snart den alarm der ringede, ikke? Min mobil den lå tændt ved siden af mig, mens jeg arbejdede. Så hver andet minut kigger sådan, sker der herovre? Bullshit.
but I was unprofitable. But yeah, that was typically like what I was doing when I was working at my job. Fortunately, I was able to center my shifts around that, and then I was in college and all that stuff. Anyways, holy freaking yap, dude. I'm yapping my bones off here. Let's get into the actual charts though. Let's get into some chart examples. All right, so now we're on the charts here, and you see that I have these boxes up where it says Asia and London session, okay? If you guys watched the initial video at the start where I was setting up TradingView, you guys already have this indicator on, ICD kills and pivots, and you already have these things selected. So make sure you go back if you skip through that for some reason and you didn't watch through.
Det vil være den ikke den, det er lidt ligegyldigt, hvordan det er, du sætter dit chart op. Men Blakes chart er bare den mest clean, jeg nogensinde har set. Så. Ja. Så der er jeg sgu bare en copycat. Jeg ved godt ens chart setup ikke er det der gør en profitable, men det kan føles som.
The setup video, but I have all these indicators I was talking about, and yeah, ICD kills and the pivot is what I use to show the sessions, right? We have Asia session here. This is from 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. This is then where true day open is, right? So true day open, really important that you mark that. It's a good area of rejection sometimes. But yeah, you can see that Asia session and London session, it had some movement, but it wasn't the best, right? We moved around 50 points during London, around 50 points during Asia, and we had some movement after that. But where we really started seeing the most movement is during when? New York AM session, right? We had a lot of movement. Really, that 930 candle already moved us 130 points. We took out all of these draws on liquidity, all of these sell side liquidity pools all the way here, pretty much in 5 minutes, right? And what took the whole entire Asia and London session got rinsed in literally 5 minutes with New York AM session. So this is typically what you'll see. You'll typically see London and Asia session have a little bit worse of price action, and then New York AM session be a little bit better. And you can see we just ended up dumping. We took out all those draws on liquidity, and yeah, I'm gonna get into liquidity in the next liquidity part 2, and I think the next lesson. But for now, what I want you guys to know is that sessions and times like this and the lows and highs of different sessions are great draws on liquidity. What I mean by that is they're great targets, and they're also great areas to look for reversals off, right? So
lige her. Oh my god, an entry. Boom, stop loss up der. Take profit right here, nok omkring 1-to-1. Og så break even right here. Boom. Gorgeous.
London session, you can see that we have London lows here. We end up trading towards that and taking that out, and then boom, what do we get? A nice reaction from that. You can see we end up taking out London lows here, London lows, we end up taking it out, and you can see we get a nice reaction off that. So we always are usually getting some sort of reactions off of session liquidity. We also
session liquidity, en lille reaction. Hvordan kan jeg lige gøre det her? Gør det bare sådan her. Altså lige at fjerne noget, ellers så tror jeg kommer til at forvirre mig selv senere, når jeg kigger tilbage på det. Sådan der. Reaction. Det kan jeg ikke stave til.
So I have Asia lows here. What do? Take out Asia lows. What do we get? A nice reaction from that. You can see we end up taking out London lows here. London lows, we end up taking it out, and you can see we get a nice reaction off that. So we always are usually getting some sort of reactions off.
Men ud fra min understanding, hvis det er, vi får en body closure below den her, så er det cooked jo. Right? Så kommer vi bare til at fortsætte med dump.
Off of session liquidity. We also have Asia lows here. What do? Take out Asia lows. Bada bing, bada boom. And what do? We also get a nice reaction off that. So it's great areas of draws on liquidity, meaning like great targets, great places to be targeting and taking your take profits, and also great places to be looking for reversals off of and taking trades off of as like key levels. So make sure you have this indicator on and make sure you're drawing out your levels every single day. I'm always drawing out my London, my Asia lows, my Asia highs, and seeing what we do in the overnight session. I'm not going to get too much into daily profiles in this lesson, and I don't really know if I'm going to go over it in this boot camp, but you just have to know that, you know, if London and Asia session, again, like I was saying, was bad and bad price action, New York AM session is probably going to go for that liquidity on London and Asia session. Or if we have great price action during the Asia session and London session, then we're probably not going to go back to those lows, and either the price action will be bad or we'll just continue the trend during Asia or London session, right? So that's just something to note, and let's just keep moving on, right? We can keep skipping through. We can look through the day after this, right? And then we can see, what does lunch hour and PM session do? Absolutely nothing, right?
Yeah.
Because what did we have? We had really good movement during AM session where
Det er det, jeg mener, lunch hour. Fucking ass.
we dumped around 170 points. We had really great movement, really clean, and then what's lunch hour and PM session going to be? Probably a lot worse price action. Sometimes we get like spikes of volatility here and there, but it's just not the best to be trading during this time. All right, let's look at another day. Right, here's Asia session opening up now. We have some movement. London session also moves quite a bit, right? It's not like the worst session, but we moved around 50 points, and pretty much the same thing. Moved around like 70 points during Asia session and London session. Now let's look at what New York AM session does. Boom. You see, I mean, it's pretty much the same exact thing that happened yesterday. It's literally the same exact thing that happened yesterday, just to the upside now, right? So this is typically like that New York reversal that you're gonna see. This is like typically the daily profile you're gonna get, like the classic daily profile that you're gonna see. But yeah, we ended up just ripping up here and taking out these draws in liquidity and these draws in liquidity, because this was just a lot of accumulation. What did New York AM session do? Manipulate, distribute, bam.
Nå ja, det er rigtigt, han sagde jo, at det teknisk set er fra 8:30.
150 points, and again, like 5 freaking minutes, we end up running through all of these highs. And what did we react off of? If you look at that, New York AM session lows. So we reacted off of that draw on liquidity there and that sell side liquidity, and then we started targeting the these highs and these draws on liquidity here being London session highs right there, and then also being what? Asia session highs right around there. And you see that we just run through all these draws and then we react off it, and then what do we get? Displacement back lower. So you can see that you can kind of catch reversals off these areas as well as target these areas of liquidity, right? So that's just typically how price action moves. I mean, there's also days though where we can have pretty big moves overnight. You can see like New York PM session also moved. Like again, this is not every single day where price action is going to look like this, but let's see. Asia session here, this was London, again, pretty choppy day, and then New York AM session looks a lot better, right? It looks a lot cleaner. So that's again typically how it's going to look, is like Asia session is going to move, you know, around 50 points. This day wasn't that great in general either overall, but like we did have, I would say, cleaner movement, right? We had more displacement towards a more obvious area, but we actually ended up leaving London lows. I'm curious to see if we had an SMT. No, we ended up just leaving London lows. So again, not every day we're going to have like super clean clean deliveries on price action. Okay, this was Christmas Eve, so it wasn't even like a validated trade. I thought I went more back. I want to try to go more back to see if like you guys can just see how price action is. For example, look at New York AM session here, bro. We just dumped freaking 400 points, and what did London session do? Move around 100 points, and then New York AM session dumps 400 points, taking out all of this London session lows, draws and liquidity, all these draws and liquidity. So yeah, again, that's typically how the market's going to move. Is it's typically going to be worse during Asia, London, and PM and lunch hour, and then New York AM session is typically when the draws and the volatility is going to be the best, which is when I'm going to trade. Now, I then want to go into news. Let's go into news because that is a pretty huge factor when it comes to time and understanding when news drops and all that stuff. So let's head over to Forex Factory. Let's do it. All right, so what I want you guys to do is go on your web browser and search up Forex Factory, okay? Forex Factory. Okay, so Forex Factory is where we're going to see all the news. I check my Forex Factory every single morning, and this is what you have to do, okay? This is the news for the week. It probably doesn't look like this on your screen yet, so let me run you through my settings, okay? So you go up here, and you click this button right here. Expected impact, yeah, I honestly should have orange folder on because sometimes some orange folder does provide some news. So put that red folder on, put that orange folder on, and put only USD, okay? You probably have all of these shit selected right now. Unclick, click none, and then just click USD. Okay, that's it. That's all you need. And have
already done.
Orange folder on. You don't really need orange folder. Well, whatever. Just have it both on. Click apply filter, and bada bing, bada boom. Here is the news that we have for the week. Okay, so we had PMI at 10 a.m. today. Now with news, I don't recommend trading before news. I recommend just waiting for news to drop and trading after news, like 5 minutes after news. I'll give yourself that window. Like, I mean, if you are gonna trade before news, make sure it's not like right before, like a minute before news drops, because you're obviously probably gonna get manipulated and stopped out. I would say give yourself like a 5-minute window. If it's, you know, like 9:40 and you're taking a trade and there's news at 10 a.m., I would say it's valid. But just make sure to like recognize how price action is. Typically, what usually happens is price action likes to be choppy before news drops, and then news drops, and then it cleans it up. Or sometimes price action is just really clean, and the news will just deliver to the drop. So yeah, we had news today at 10 a.m. Today was just overall a super choppy day, so there was really nothing from today that was like good. But you can see that we had news drop at 10 a.m. and you can see we kind of had a pretty nice candle. This isn't like the most significant news day, but the candle happened pretty fast. I mean, it was a 40-point candle. This news really wasn't that significant at all. Going back to Forex Factory here, right? We have a couple of different things I want you guys to look at. So we have non-farm employment change. You don't really need to worry about this. PMI, JOLTS jobs openings. This is, you know, similar to the Monday's, what's it called? Monday's news event. But yeah, JOLTS jobs openings. This is probably going to be another pretty wicky candle. Sometimes it can be big. Sometimes it can be small. You really don't know with like PMI and job openings and stuff like that. Unemployment claims happens at 8:30. And then we have Friday, the first Friday of every month is NFP. So NFP is a really strong mover in price. It's a lot of volatility, a lot of injection in the market. So make sure, you know, NFP day is a really strong day. Make sure, you know, you're lowering your size. Make sure you're paying attention to how many lots you're using, because it's probably going to be a lot more volatility. Probably trade micros instead of minis. I would recommend that.
Okay, jeg har bare fået at vide, at man ikke skal trade, men hvis man lower sin risk, som man siger. Så det er fint.
And then we also have consumer sentiment at 10. So a lot of news is this week. I'm going to be pretty, not risk off, but like I'm going to be, being careful, I would say. But yeah, news doesn't mean, guys, that I know a lot of people are like, don't trade red folder news. I hear that a lot from a lot of traders, but personally, I love trading red folder news. I love trading when the market is volatile and when it's providing good opportunity. I don't like trading when the market is not volatile and not providing good opportunity in days where there is no news. Usually the market is a lot worse. So that's just me. You know, it's not, of course, every day, because for example today, what was the market doing? Absolute fucking nothing. So yeah, I mean sometimes news can do nothing, but typically news moves the market. And then we have CPI, and we have PPI. CPI and PPI, I mean it usually drops Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, usually whenever those days are. Sometimes it's like Wednesday and Thursday, sometimes it's Thursday, Friday, sometimes it's Tuesday, Wednesday. This month it's Tuesday and Wednesday. We have core CPI. So this is another important news event to be paying attention to. CPI, I would say pay attention to CPI, NFP. These all drop at 8:30 a.m. Eastern, so know that. This all drops at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. NFP, whenever Powell speaks, so you'll sometimes see Powell speaking. Let's see if we have that anytime soon. Hello, Powell, are you alive? Dude. Well, Powell, come on. FOMC is also another one. 2 p.m. that happens when FOMC drops. 2 p.m., 2:30. Not meeting minutes though, like FOMC. Okay, where's FOMC? Command F, FOMC. Here we go. FOMC statement is what I want you guys to pay attention to. Meeting minutes sometimes, but like really pay attention to the FOMC statement. This is the only red folder news that you guys should be paying attention to during PM session is FOMC. And I personally don't trade FOMC days. It's very rare that I do, but typically the price action is really bad during AM session. And the move is to usually trade just FOMC's PM session. But I find that I have just a really low win rate trading FOMC during PM session. And Eastern, so know that. It's all drops 8:30 a.m. Eastern. NFP, whenever Powell speaks, so you'll sometimes see Powell speaking. Let's see if we have that anytime soon. Hello, Powell, are you alive? Dude. Well, Powell, come on. FOMC is also another one. 2 p.m. that happens when FOMC drops. 2 p.m., 2:30. Not meeting minutes though, like FOMC. Okay, where's FOMC? Command F, FOMC. Here we go. FOMC statement is what I want you guys to pay attention to. Meeting minutes sometimes, but like really pay attention to the FOMC statement. This is the only
meeting minutes.
Red folder news that you guys should be paying attention to during PM session is FOMC. And I personally don't trade FOMC days. It's very rare that I do, but typically the price action is really bad during AM session. And the move is to usually trade just FOMC's PM session. But I find that I have just a really low win rate trading FOMC during PM session. And I don't trade that well during FOMC PM session. So I usually just skip this day as a whole, but sometimes, I mean, I'll still hop on during the morning because sometimes it could be clean. But what we usually do whenever we have news is, again, we just like save liquidity.
Stadigvæk.
before when that news drops. So let's say we have like a really prominent sell side pool here, right? And then let's say, you know, this is AM session. We're trading. Then we do something like this, and it's like, oh my god, why didn't we take this liquidity pool in AM session? And then it's like, damn, why didn't we take that during AM? And then what does 2 p.m. and 2:30 and FOMC do? Boom, we take that liquidity. So we usually just like save a lot of like lows and highs, and we don't take liquidity and we save it for news. And it's the same thing for like CPI and PPI. So that's why I don't recommend like trading before news can be risky, and trading like seconds right after news drops is also very risky because the market is going to need to like accumulate, you know, rebalance itself, and then we can keep moving. So I would say, you know, wait like 5 minutes, give yourself again that window of time before trading. And yeah, the same way I was talking about sessions and how those are good draws on liquidity, I'm going to show you guys something called data lows and data highs, and I'll get more into this soon when I'm going to be talking about liquidity part 2 in the next video, but I'll talk a little bit about that. And basically what you'll usually see with 8:30 a.m. news like CPI, with PPI, with NFP, right, with these big news events, unemployment claims, is we'll usually create some sort of big candle, right? And this is, you'll usually see a data wick, which is just a candle with a really fat wick, right? Where you'll see a candle like this, and this is the body, but then the wick will be like pretty massive. And what this is seen as is just an imbalance in the market. So price tends to trade towards these imbalances to fill this wick and take out that draw on liquidity, right? So this is again great draw on liquidity as well as great area of rejection, right? Just overall a great target to have. So just a great area to know where price is moving to. So make sure you mark out your data highs and data lows, and I'll show you kind of how to do that right now. That's pretty much going to be it for news. Again, main ones to look at is CPI, PPI, FOMC, unemployment claims, and you know, at 10 a.m. news, that 9:45 news is also a thing. So you know, there's usually news from 8:30, 9:45, 10 a.m., and 2 p.m. That's really all the times of news is. But yeah. News, that 9:45 news is also a thing. So you know, there's usually news from 8:30, 9:45, 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. That's really all the times of news is. But yeah, let's get back on the chart, and I'll show you guys the data wicks, and then I'll wrap up this episode. So I'll show you guys what news does. As you can see here, this is kind of just the range we're trading in, and on this day we had CPI at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. So the market is just chopping, and it's waiting, and it's waiting, and it's waiting. And what does news do? We end up opening up. CPI opens up at 8:30 a.m. Eastern right here, and bada bing, bada boom, we have a huge, massive candle. So you usually see these huge, massive candles at around 8:30. You see we have just a 100-point move in 1 minute, and then we have this data wick that gets created. This is a great draw on liquidity to have, is a data wick. So we'll usually create some sort of wick that is, you know, abnormal, I would like to say, and this is that abnormal wick that you see, and this is called a data high, right? And price retraces into this bullish rally gap right here, as you can see. And what do? We end up trading up back towards those data highs. So you can, you know, end up catching some long positions towards that, and these are great draws on liquidity to have. But yeah, that's just one example of what news does. I'll show you another day. So again, guys, not only does news happen at 8:30 a.m., 9:45, 10 a.m., all those times in the morning, there's also news that happens in PM session, as you can see here. On this day, Wednesday, December 10th, we had FOMC statements released at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And as you can see, 2 p.m. opens, and we have another massive candle, right? And we end up creating some data wicks. You can mark these out on the 1 minute time frame, your data wick, your data low, your data high, and these are just great areas of targets. You can see we have a data high here. We also have a data low, right? But yeah, just great areas to target. Look to target either of these areas. Typically, we'll have some move like this where we can go back to the highs, and then we'll go back to the lows if we get enough displacement, or vice versa. Some move like this where we can go back to the highs and look to target. either of these areas. Typically we'll have some move like this where we can go back to the highs and then we'll go back to the lows if we get enough displacement, or vice versa, lows to highs, or highs and continue higher, right? But yeah, we ended up trading towards those data highs, and I think we just ended up ripping up, chopping around. We edged those data lows, and yeah, that was pretty much the price action for this day, and that's pretty much going to cover it all on news though. Make sure to mark out your data lows, your data highs. I'll go into time, liquidity, liquidity part 2 in the next lesson, but I just want to give you guys a brief overview on all of that so you guys are paying attention to when news is dropping and how to react to that, and then of course all the sessions that we talked about before. But yeah, that is pretty much going to wrap up this lesson. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next lesson when we talk about, I think we're going to do liquidity part 2, or we're going to do SMTs. I'm not sure yet. I'm going to think about it for a second, and then I'm going to come back and record another part. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up, and I'll see you guys in the next one. What is
Tak fordi I så med. Næste gang er det Advanced Liquidity, og den er... Hvad fanden er den? Den er en halv time lang. Så, ja. Yeah. Wow. Ja, tak fordi I så med på den her video. Jeg optager afsnit 2 med det samme. Lægger den ud i dag. Maybe. Tak fordi I så med. Vi ses. Hej hej.